Wait, don't chase. The moment you stop chasing, something strange begins to happen. The energy shifts. The same people who ignored you start noticing you. The ones who took you for granted begin to question your silence. And suddenly, without warning, they start moving toward you instead of away. This is not magic. This is human nature. When you stop seeking validation, you become valuable. When you stop pursuing attention, you become attention. Most people spend their lives chasing love, approval, recognition, and respect. But the more you chase, the more you communicate one silent message. I need you more than you need me. And people can feel that. It lowers your perceived value without you even saying a word. Stoic philosophy teaches the opposite. It teaches restraint, self-control, and emotional independence. It teaches that what you don't chase often comes naturally. When you detach, you reclaim your power. Not by becoming cold or arrogant, but by becoming grounded. You begin to focus on your purpose, your growth, your discipline. You stop reacting to every message, every delay, every sign of rejection. Instead, you respond only when it aligns with your peace. And that calm presence becomes magnetic. People are drawn to those who are not desperate. There is something deeply attractive about a person who is not easily moved. Someone who is calm when others panic. Someone who walks away instead of begging to stay. That kind of strength is rare. And because it is rare, it is respected. Stoicism is not about suppressing emotions, it is about mastering them. It is about understanding that your worth does not depend on how others treat you. Let me tell you a short story. There was a man named Daniel. For years, he chased one woman. He texted first, apologized even when he was right, and always tried to prove his worth. She liked him, but she never respected him. One day, something changed. Daniel stopped texting. He stopped explaining himself. He stopped chasing. Instead, he focused on his work, his health, and his goals. Weeks passed. Then one day, she reached out. Not casually, but urgently. She asked where he had been. She asked why he changed. She even said she missed him. Daniel didn't respond immediately. Not out of pride, but because he was no longer waiting. He had moved on internally. When he finally replied, it was calm, simple, and without desperation. And for the first time, she saw him differently. Not as someone chasing her, but as someone she could lose. This is what happens when you stop chasing. You create space. And in that space, people begin to feel your absence. They start to realize your value. Not because you told them, but because they experienced life without you. But understand this clearly, this is not a game. Stoicism is not about manipulating people into chasing you. It is about becoming someone who doesn't need to chase anyone at all. The real power is not in making others beg. The real power is in not needing them to. When you build yourself, your mind, your discipline, your purpose, you naturally attract. Not everyone, but the right ones. The ones who respect your silence. The ones who value your presence. The ones who don't require you to prove yourself constantly. There is peace in that. And there is strength in walking away from anything that does not recognize your worth. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just quietly. With dignity. Because at the end of the day, the person who holds the most power is the one who can walk away without looking back. If you've been chasing, take this as your sign to stop. Not to become distant, but to become centered. Focus on becoming the best version of yourself. Let your actions speak louder than your words. Let your silence say what your effort once tried to prove. And watch what happens. The moment you stop chasing, something strange begins to happen. The energy shifts. The same people who ignored you start noticing you. The ones who took you for granted begin to question your silence. And suddenly, without warning, they start moving toward you instead of away. This is not magic. This is human nature. When you stop seeking validation, you become valuable. When you stop pursuing attention, you become attention. Most people spend their lives chasing love, approval, recognition, and respect. But the more you chase, the more you communicate one silent message. I need you more than you need me. And people can feel that. It lowers your perceived value without you even saying a word. Stoic philosophy teaches the opposite. It teaches restraint, self-control, and emotional independence. It teaches that what you don't chase often comes naturally. When you detach, you reclaim your power. Not by becoming cold or arrogant, but by becoming grounded. You begin to focus on your purpose, your growth, your discipline. You stop reacting to every message, every delay, every sign of rejection. Instead, you respond only when it aligns with your peace. And that calm presence becomes magnetic. People are drawn to those who are not desperate. There is something deeply attractive about a person who is not easily moved. Someone who is calm when others panic. Someone who walks away instead of begging to stay. That kind of strength is rare. And because it is rare, it is respected. Stoicism is not about suppressing emotions, it is about mastering them. It is about understanding that your worth does not depend on how others treat you. Let me tell you a story. There was a man named Daniel. For years, he chased one woman. He texted first, apologized even when he was right, and always tried to prove his worth. She liked him, but she never respected him. One day, something changed. Daniel stopped texting. He stopped explaining himself. He stopped chasing. Instead, he focused on his work, his health, and his goals. At first, it felt uncomfortable. Silence always does. He would pick up his phone, type a message, and then delete it. Over and over again. But each time he chose not to chase, he became a little stronger. Weeks passed. Then one day, she reached out. Not casually, but urgently. She asked where he had been. She asked why he changed. She even said she missed him. Daniel didn't respond immediately. Not out of pride, but because he was no longer waiting. He had moved on internally. When he finally replied, it was calm, simple, and without desperation. And for the first time, she saw him differently. Not as someone chasing her, but as someone she could lose. This is what happens when you stop chasing. You create space. And in that space, people begin to feel your absence. They start to realize your value. Not because you told them, but because they experienced life without you. But understand this clearly, this is not a game. Stoicism is not about manipulating people into chasing you. It is about becoming someone who doesn't need to chase anyone at all. The real power is not in making others beg. The real power is in not needing them to. And that's where most people get it wrong. They try to act distant, just to get a reaction. But deep inside, they're still attached. Still waiting. Still hoping. And people can feel that too. True detachment is internal. It is when your peace no longer depends on someone else's behavior. When you reach that level, everything changes. You stop overthinking texts. You stop checking if they viewed your message. You stop replaying conversations in your head. You become free. And freedom is attractive. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how people who seem busy, focused, and fulfilled are the ones everyone wants to be around? It's not because they're trying to impress anyone. It's because they're not trying at all. They are simply living with purpose. When you stop chasing, you redirect your energy. Instead of chasing people, you chase growth. Instead of chasing validation, you build confidence. Instead of chasing attention, you create value. And that shift is everything. Because the truth is, people don't respect what comes too easily. When you are always available, always responding instantly, always trying to please, you remove the mystery. You remove the challenge. And without challenge, there is no appreciation. But when you step back, when you become selective with your time and energy, you naturally increase your value. Not because you're pretending, but because you finally understand your worth. There will be moments where you feel tempted to go back to chasing. That's normal. Habits don't disappear overnight. But every time you choose self-respect over desperation, you are rewriting your identity. You are becoming someone stronger. Someone calmer. Someone in control. And over time, people will notice. Some will respect you more. Some will try to come back. And some will leave completely. Let them. Because not everyone deserves access to you. Another story. A woman named Sarah spent years trying to hold on to a relationship that was slowly draining her. She gave everything, her time, her energy, her attention. But it was never enough. The more she gave, the less she received. One day, she made a quiet decision. She stopped trying. She stopped over-explaining. She stopped begging for attention. She stopped chasing love that felt one-sided. Instead, she turned inward. She started reading, exercising, improving her mindset. She rebuilt her life piece by piece. Months later, the same person who once ignored her came back. This time with effort. With interest. With consistency. But Sarah had changed. She didn't feel the same need anymore. What once felt important now felt optional. And for the first time, she had the power to choose. That is the real transformation. Not when they come back. But when you no longer need them to. Because at the end of the day, your life should not revolve around someone else's attention. Your happiness should not depend on someone else's actions. You are your own foundation. And when you build that foundation strong enough, nothing outside of you can shake it. Most people never realize that chasing is not just an action, it's a mindset. It's the belief that something outside of you is more important than what's within you. And once you carry that belief, it starts to shape everything. The way you speak. The way you text. The way you react when someone pulls away. You begin to shrink without noticing. You start explaining yourself too much. You start justifying your value. You start trying to earn a place that should have been given freely. And slowly, without realizing it, you lose your position. Because the truth is simple, what you chase often runs, and what you become attracts. There is a silent law in human behavior. People are drawn to those who are already fulfilled. Not perfect. Not flawless. But complete within themselves. When you are not constantly seeking approval, you naturally stand out. Think about the moments when you felt the most confident in your life. It wasn't when someone finally texted you back. It wasn't when someone chose you. It was when you were focused on yourself, your growth, your purpose, your direction. That's the state you need to return to. Not occasionally, but consistently. Because once you build that state, everything changes. You stop reacting emotionally to small things. You stop needing constant reassurance. You stop fearing loss. And when you remove the fear of losing someone, you gain something much more powerful: control over yourself. And that is the foundation of Stoic strength. It's not about controlling others. It's about mastering your own mind. Because the moment you rely on someone else for your peace, you've already given away your power. And the moment you take that power back, people feel it. They may not understand it. They may not even be able to explain it. But they notice the difference. Your energy changes. Your presence becomes heavier. Your words become fewer, but more meaningful. And suddenly, the same people who once ignored you begin to wonder what changed. But here's the part most people won't tell you. When you stop chasing, not everyone comes back. Some people disappear completely. And that's a good thing. Because it reveals something important. Those people were never aligned with you in the first place. They were only comfortable when you were the one doing all the work. And once you stop, the connection collapses. Let it collapse. Because anything that requires you to constantly chase is not built on respect, it's built on imbalance. And imbalance always leads to exhaustion. You deserve something different. You deserve relationships where effort is mutual. Where respect is natural. Where your presence is appreciated without you having to prove it. But to reach that, you must first stop accepting less. And that begins with how you treat yourself. Because people don't just respond to what you say, they respond to what you tolerate. If you tolerate being ignored, they will ignore you. If you tolerate being disrespected, they will disrespect you. If you tolerate being an option, they will never make you a priority. So the shift starts within. You don't demand better, you become someone who only accepts better. And that difference is everything. Because when you demand, you're still chasing. But when you embody value, you attract it. There's a quiet confidence in someone who knows their worth. Not loud. Not arrogant. Just steady. That kind of person doesn't need to convince anyone to stay. They simply create a standard, and those who meet it stay, and those who don't leave. And they're okay with both. That's the mindset you need to build. And it won't happen overnight. There will be days where you doubt yourself. Days where you feel like reaching out, like going back, like chasing again. But those are the moments that define your growth. Because discipline is not built when things are easy. It's built when you choose differently, even when it's hard. And every time you choose self-respect over chasing, you reinforce a new identity. You become someone who values themselves. Someone who doesn't beg. Someone who doesn't chase. Someone who attracts. And over time, that identity becomes your reality. People will treat you differently, not because they changed, but because you did. And once you reach that point, something else happens. You stop being impressed by attention. You start valuing consistency. You start valuing effort. You start valuing peace. Because attention is easy to give. But respect, that has to be earned. And the fastest way to earn respect is to stop chasing it. Focus on your life. Build your body. Strengthen your mind. Create something meaningful. When your life becomes full, you no longer feel the urge to chase what's missing, because nothing feels missing anymore. And that's when everything begins to align. Because the goal was never to make them chase you. The goal was to outgrow the need to chase anyone at all. And once you do that, you win, regardless of who comes back. So take a moment and ask yourself honestly. Where in your life are you still chasing? Is it a person? Is it approval? Is it validation? And what would happen if you stopped? Not out of anger. Not out of ego. But out of self-respect. Because sometimes the most powerful move you can make is no move at all. Silence. Stillness. Focus. That's where your power is. And once you understand that, you'll never feel the need to chase again. There is another layer to this that most people never talk about. When you stop chasing, you are not just changing how others see you, you are changing how you see yourself. And that shift is everything. Because the real damage of chasing is not rejection. It's what it does to your identity. It slowly convinces you that you are not enough on your own. That you need someone else to complete you. That your value increases only when someone else chooses you. But that belief is false. Your value is not something that is assigned by others. It is something you build internally. And once it is built, it becomes unshakable. Think about this carefully. Why does someone walking away from you feel so powerful? It's not because they are better than you. It's because in that moment, they appear less attached. And in human psychology, the one who is less attached always seems more in control. So if you reverse that, if you become the one who is centered, grounded, and not emotionally dependent, you naturally shift the balance. Not by force. Not by manipulation. But by presence. And presence is something you cannot fake for long. It comes from real inner work. It comes from sitting with yourself in silence. From facing your thoughts without distraction. From building discipline when no one is watching. That's where true confidence is created. Not from attention. Not from compliments. But from self-mastery. There will be a moment in your journey where you realize something surprising. You no longer want the people you once chased. Because you've grown beyond that version of yourself. And this is where many people feel confused. They think something is wrong because their desires changed. But nothing is wrong. This is growth. You are no longer attracted to inconsistency. You are no longer drawn to emotional chaos. You begin to value stability, clarity, and peace. And once peace becomes your priority, everything else falls into place. Because now you are not asking, do they want me? You are asking, do they align with me? And that question changes everything. It puts you back in control. It turns you from the one chasing into the one choosing. And that is where your real power begins. Let me share another short story. There was a man who spent years trying to impress everyone around him. He worked hard, spoke carefully, and constantly adjusted himself to fit into every situation. He wanted to be liked. But no matter what he did, it never felt enough. One day, he stopped trying. Not in a negative way, but in a freeing way. He stopped pretending. He stopped overthinking every word. He stopped chasing approval. Instead, he focused on becoming honest, direct, grounded. At first, people reacted differently. Some pulled away. Some didn't understand him anymore. But over time, something unexpected happened. The people who stayed respected him more. They trusted him more. They valued his presence more. Because authenticity replaced desperation. And authenticity is rare. That is the direction you need to move toward. Not perfection, but authenticity. Because when you are real, you don't need to chase reactions. You simply exist, and the right people connect with that. Now here is something important. Stopping the chase does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop overextending. It means you stop giving more than is returned. It means you stop abandoning yourself to keep others. There is a difference. And once you understand that difference, your relationships improve instantly. Because now, everything becomes balanced. Effort is matched. Respect is mutual. And your energy is protected. You no longer pour into empty spaces. You invest where there is growth. That is how strong individuals live. They don't chase opportunities. They prepare for them. They don't chase people. They build themselves. They don't chase validation. They create value. And because of that, everything they need eventually finds its way to them. Not instantly, but naturally. So if you feel like you've been chasing for too long, don't see it as failure. See it as awareness. Because now you know better. And once you know better, you can move differently. You can choose silence over reaction. You can choose discipline over impulse. You can choose growth over attachment. And those choices, repeated over time, will transform your entire life. One day, you will look back and realize that the moment you stopped chasing was the moment everything started changing. Not because others changed, but because you did. And that is the real story. So take your power back. Not loudly, not aggressively, but quietly. Through your actions, through your focus, through your consistency. Become someone who is too busy building their life to chase anyone who isn't aligned. And watch how your world begins to shift. There is a quiet moment that comes after you stop chasing. At first, it feels empty. No constant notifications. No emotional highs and lows. No waiting for someone to respond. Just silence. And most people run from that silence. Because in that silence, you meet yourself. You notice your thoughts more clearly. You become aware of how much of your energy was tied to someone else. And for a while, it feels uncomfortable, almost like withdrawal. But if you stay in that space long enough, something powerful begins to happen. Clarity. You begin to see things as they really were, not as you hoped they would be. You remember the inconsistency. The effort you gave that wasn't returned. The times you ignored your own standards just to keep someone around. And instead of feeling hurt, you start to feel free. Because now you understand. You weren't losing them. You were losing yourself. And the moment you stop chasing is the moment you begin to find yourself again. That is why this shift is so powerful. It's not just about relationships, it's about identity. You are no longer the person who waits. You are no longer the person who overexplains. You are no longer the person who sacrifices peace for attention. You become someone different. Someone steady. Someone focused. Someone who chooses instead of begs. And once you become that person, your standards rise automatically. You stop entertaining half-effort. You stop replying to inconsistency. You stop making excuses for behavior that doesn't align with you. Not because you're angry, but because you've seen what it costs to ignore your own worth. There's a strength in that kind of awareness. A quiet, unshakable strength. And people can feel it. They may not say it directly, but they notice the difference in how you carry yourself. Your words are fewer, but more intentional. Your presence feels calmer, but more grounded. You are no longer trying to be seen. You simply are. And that being is what draws people in. Because in a world where everyone is trying so hard to be noticed, the one who is at peace stands out the most. But here's something even deeper. When you stop chasing, you stop forcing outcomes. And when you stop forcing outcomes, you allow life to reveal what is truly meant for you. Some people will come back. Not because you asked them to, but because your absence made them realize your value. Others will not return. And that's not a loss. That's clarity. Because anything that disappears when you stop chasing was never stable to begin with. Let it go. You're not here to convince people to stay. You're here to build a life that feels so full, so aligned, that only the right people can fit into it. That's the real goal. Not attention. Not validation. Alignment. And alignment requires patience. It requires discipline. It requires the ability to walk away from what looks good but feels wrong. And that's not easy. There will be moments where you question yourself. Moments where you wonder if you should reach out, just one more time. Moments where loneliness tries to pull you back into old habits. But those moments are tests. Not of your strength, but of your clarity. Because once you see your value, you cannot unsee it. You either honor it, or you betray it. And every time you choose to honor it, you grow stronger. Stronger in your decisions. Stronger in your boundaries. Stronger in your identity. Until one day, something shifts completely. You no longer feel the urge to chase at all. Not because you're forcing yourself not to, but because the desire is gone. You've outgrown it. And that is the highest level of freedom. Because now, your actions are not controlled by fear. They are guided by purpose. You speak when it matters. You act when it aligns. You walk away when it doesn't. And you do it all without needing approval. That's the transformation. That's the power of Stoic philosophy in real life. It's not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming unshaken. It's about feeling deeply, but not losing control. It's about caring, but not clinging. It's about loving, but not losing yourself in the process. And when you live like that, everything changes. Your relationships become healthier. Your mind becomes clearer. Your life becomes more intentional. Because you are no longer reacting to everything, you are choosing your responses. And that choice is where your power lives. So if you're at the beginning of this journey, understand this. It won't feel easy at first. You will miss the familiarity of chasing. You will feel the urge to go back. But don't. Stay with the process. Stay with yourself. Because on the other side of that discomfort is a version of you that no longer needs to chase anything. A version of you that attracts naturally. A version of you that stands strong, calm, and in control. And once you become that person, you'll realize something important. You were never chasing them. You were chasing a feeling. And now that you can create that feeling within yourself, you don't need to chase it anymore. That's the real freedom. And that's the life you're building now. There is a stage in this journey that feels almost invisible, yet it is where everything truly begins to change. It is the moment when you stop reacting instantly. You see the message, but you don't rush to reply. You feel the urge to explain yourself, but you choose silence instead. At first, it feels unnatural, almost like you are going against your own instincts. That's because you are. You are breaking a pattern that once controlled you. And every time you pause instead of chasing, you create a new habit. A habit of self-respect. A habit of emotional control. Over time, that pause becomes your power. You begin to realize that not every situation deserves your energy. Not every person deserves your attention. And that realization changes how you move. You become more selective, more intentional, more aware. This is not about ignoring people or playing games. It is about protecting your peace. Because once you understand how valuable your energy is, you stop giving it away so easily. And that is when others begin to notice the shift in you. There is also a deeper realization that comes with this transformation, and it is not always comfortable. You start to see how much of your past behavior was driven by fear. Fear of losing someone. Fear of being alone. Fear of not being enough. And those fears pushed you to chase, to overgive, to hold on even when you knew something wasn't right. But now, as you step back, you begin to confront those fears directly. You sit with them instead of running from them. And in doing so, you weaken their control over you. You realize that being alone is not as painful as losing yourself. You understand that your worth does not decrease when someone fails to recognize it. And slowly your confidence starts to rebuild, not from external validation, but from internal strength. This kind of confidence is different. It is quiet. It is stable. It does not need constant reassurance. And because it comes from within, it cannot be taken away by anyone else. That is the kind of strength that changes your life completely. As you continue this journey, you will notice that your standards begin to rise naturally. You no longer feel comfortable in situations that once felt normal. Conversations that lack depth start to drain you. Inconsistency becomes something you can no longer tolerate. You begin to value clarity, honesty, and effort in a way you never did before. This is not because you have become difficult, but because you have become aware. You understand what it costs to ignore your own needs, and you are no longer willing to pay that price. And with higher standards comes fewer distractions. You spend less time trying to fix people or situations that are not aligned with you. Instead, you invest that time into yourself, into your growth, your goals, your purpose. And that investment begins to show. Not just in how you look, but in how you carry yourself. There is a confidence in your presence that cannot be faked. And that confidence attracts the right kind of attention without you needing to chase it. There will be moments when people from your past try to re-enter your life. People who once had access to you when you were still chasing, still proving, still giving too much. They may come back with curiosity, with interest, or even with regret. And in those moments you will be tested. Not by them, but by yourself. You will have to decide whether you respond from your old habits, or your new mindset. And this decision matters more than anything else. Because growth is not just about changing your behavior, it is about maintaining that change when it is challenged. If you go back to chasing, you return to the same cycle. But if you stay grounded, if you remain calm and centered, you reinforce your transformation. You show yourself that you have truly changed. And that is where real confidence is built. Not in easy situations, but in moments of temptation. Moments where you could go back, but you choose not to. Another important shift happens when you begin to value your time differently. You realize that time is not just something you spend, it is something you invest. And once you see it that way, you become more careful about where you place it. You stop wasting hours overthinking someone's actions. You stop replaying conversations in your mind. You stop waiting for responses that may never come. Instead, you use that time to build something meaningful. Something that contributes to your growth. Whether it is learning a new skill, improving your health, or working toward your goals, you begin to redirect your focus. And that redirection changes everything. Because the more you invest in yourself, the less you feel the need to chase anything outside of you. Your life becomes fuller, richer, more purposeful. And when your life is full, you don't look for someone to complete you. You look for someone who complements you. There is also a sense of peace that comes with this transformation, and it is something you cannot fully understand until you experience it. It is the peace of not needing to prove anything to anyone. The peace of knowing that you are enough, regardless of who stays or leaves. This peace is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet, steady, and constant. It allows you to move through life without being shaken by every small change. You become less reactive and more intentional. You choose your battles carefully. You protect your energy fiercely. And because of that, your life becomes simpler. Not easier, but clearer. You know what you want. You know what you deserve. And you are willing to walk away from anything that does not align with that. This kind of clarity is rare, and it is what sets you apart. It is what allows you to live with purpose instead of confusion. As this journey continues, you begin to understand that attraction is not something you chase, it is something you embody. When you are focused, disciplined, and at peace with yourself, you naturally draw people in. Not everyone, but the right ones. The ones who see your value without you having to explain it. The ones who respect your boundaries instead of testing them. And these connections feel different. They feel balanced, natural, and effortless. There is no need to overthink or overcompensate. Everything flows the way it should. And that is how you know you are aligned. Because when something is right, it does not require you to abandon yourself to keep it. It allows you to be fully who you are without fear. And that is the kind of connection you deserve. Not something you have to chase, but something that meets you where you are. There comes a moment when you begin to notice how different your reactions have become compared to before, and that awareness alone shows how far you've grown. Situations that once triggered anxiety now feel manageable. Messages that once made your heart race now feel ordinary. You are no longer controlled by anticipation or fear, and that shift gives you a quiet kind of confidence that cannot be easily shaken. It is not loud or boastful, but it is deeply rooted within you. You start to realize that your strength is not in how much you can hold on to, but in how easily you can let go when something no longer serves you. Letting go stops feeling like a loss and begins to feel like a decision. A decision to protect your peace, your time, and your energy. And when you consistently choose yourself in this way, you build trust within yourself. That trust becomes your foundation, allowing you to move through life without constantly seeking reassurance from others or needing their approval to feel secure. As you grow deeper into this mindset, you also begin to notice how your environment changes in response to your internal shift. People who once expected easy access to you may start to question your distance. They may not understand why you no longer respond the same way or why you seem less available. But what they are really noticing is your growth. You are no longer operating from a place of need, and that difference changes how others interact with you. Some will respect it, while others may feel uncomfortable with it. And that is perfectly fine. Not everyone is meant to stay in your life as you evolve. Growth naturally creates distance between who you were and who you are becoming. And instead of fearing that distance, you begin to embrace it. Because you understand that every step forward requires leaving something behind. Whether it is old habits, old mindsets, or even certain people, letting go becomes part of the process. And with every release, you create space for something better to enter your life. There is also a powerful shift in how you handle uncertainty. Before, uncertainty may have pushed you to chase for answers, to seek clarity from others, or to fill the silence with unnecessary actions. But now you learn to sit with it. You learn to allow things to unfold without forcing them. This patience is not weakness, it is strength. It shows that you trust the process, and that you trust yourself enough to handle whatever outcome comes your way. And that trust removes a lot of pressure from your life. You no longer feel the need to control every situation or predict every outcome. Instead, you focus on what you can control, your actions, your mindset, and your decisions. Everything else you let be. And in doing so, you find a level of peace that is difficult to describe. It is the peace of knowing that no matter what happens, you will be okay. Because your stability does not come from external circumstances, but from within you. Another transformation you begin to notice is in the way you communicate. You no longer feel the urge to explain yourself excessively or to justify your decisions to people who do not understand you. Your words become more intentional, more direct, and more meaningful. You speak when it is necessary, and you remain silent when it is not. This balance gives your words more weight. People start to listen more carefully when you speak because you are no longer filling every space with unnecessary conversation. Silence becomes one of your strongest tools. Not as a form of avoidance, but as a form of control. You choose when to engage and when to step back. And that choice reflects your self-respect. Because when you respect yourself, you do not feel the need to prove your worth through constant communication. You let your actions, your consistency, and your presence speak for you. And over time, people begin to recognize that difference and respond to you with a higher level of respect. At this stage, you also begin to understand the importance of boundaries in a much deeper way. Boundaries are no longer something you feel guilty about setting, they become a natural part of how you live your life. You understand that boundaries are not about pushing people away, but about protecting what matters to you. Your time, your energy, your peace. And once you start setting clear boundaries, you notice how much your life improves. You feel less overwhelmed, less drained, and more in control of your environment. People may test these boundaries at first, especially if they were used to a different version of you. But consistency is key. The more you uphold your standards, the more others learn how to treat you. And those who cannot respect your boundaries will naturally fall away. Instead of seeing this as a loss, you begin to see it as alignment. Because the people who remain are the ones who value you enough to respect the space you've created for yourself. As you continue forward, you begin to realize that your happiness is no longer tied to outcomes in the same way it used to be. Whether something works out or not, you remain grounded. You understand that not everything is meant to stay, and not everything is meant to succeed. Some things are simply meant to teach you. And once you adopt that perspective, you stop taking things personally. Rejection no longer feels like a reflection of your worth. Instead, it becomes a redirection. A sign that something else, something better aligned, is waiting for you. This mindset frees you from the fear of failure. You become more willing to take risks, to try new things, and to step outside of your comfort zone. Because you are no longer afraid of losing, you are focused on growing. And that focus shifts your entire experience of life from one of fear to one of opportunity. There is also a noticeable change in how you view relationships as a whole. You stop seeing them as something you need to complete you and start seeing them as something that should complement you. This shift removes a lot of pressure from your interactions. You are no longer trying to impress or win someone over. You are simply being yourself and observing whether there is alignment. This makes your connections more genuine and more fulfilling. Because when you are not chasing, you are able to see people for who they truly are, not just who you want them to be. You become more discerning, more aware, and more selective. And this selectiveness is not about being judgmental, it is about being intentional. You are choosing quality over quantity, depth over surface, and alignment over convenience. And that choice leads to stronger, healthier, and more meaningful relationships in the long run. Eventually, you reach a point where your sense of self becomes so strong that external validation loses its influence over you. Compliments are appreciated, but they are no longer needed to feel confident. Criticism is considered, but it does not define your self-worth. You become stable within yourself, and that stability becomes your greatest strength. It allows you to navigate life with a clear mind and a steady heart. You are no longer easily swayed by opinions or influenced by temporary emotions. Instead, you operate from a place of clarity and purpose. And that clarity guides your decisions, your actions, and your direction in life. You begin to trust yourself more deeply, and that trust eliminates a lot of the confusion and doubt that once held you back. You know who you are, what you stand for, and where you are going. And that certainty gives you a sense of direction that is both empowering and liberating. There is a quiet discipline that forms when you begin choosing yourself consistently, and it shows up in the smallest decisions you make every day. You wake up and instead of checking who texted you, you check your goals. You go through your day without constantly wondering how someone feels about you, and instead, you focus on how you feel about your own progress. This shift may seem small, but it changes your entire direction. Because where your attention goes, your life follows. When your attention is always on others, you lose yourself. But when your attention returns to your growth, everything starts aligning. You begin to notice improvements not just in your mindset, but in your habits, your confidence, and your overall energy. You feel more in control, more stable, and more grounded. And that stability becomes your advantage. Because while others are distracted by emotions and reactions, you are focused on building something meaningful. And over time, that focus separates you from the crowd in a way that cannot be ignored. Another realization that becomes clear is that not every connection deserves your effort, and not every opportunity deserves your time. Before, you may have said yes to everything out of fear of missing out or fear of losing someone. But now you understand that saying yes to everything often means saying no to yourself. And so you become more selective. You choose where to invest your energy based on alignment, not emotion. This level of selectiveness is not about being distant or unavailable. It is about being intentional. You are no longer reacting to everything that comes your way. Instead, you are deciding what truly deserves your attention. And that decision-making process becomes sharper over time. You start to trust your instincts more. You notice red flags earlier. You recognize patterns faster. And because of that awareness, you avoid situations that would have once drained you. This is how growth protects you, not by removing challenges, but by preparing you to navigate them with clarity and control. As you continue evolving, you begin to notice how much your internal dialogue has changed. The way you speak to yourself becomes more supportive, more constructive, and more honest. You are no longer your harshest critic, constantly pointing out your flaws or doubting your abilities. Instead, you become your own source of encouragement. You remind yourself of your progress, your resilience, and your potential. And this shift in self-talk has a powerful effect on your confidence. Because confidence is not built from what others say about you. It is built from what you say about yourself when no one else is around. When your inner voice becomes stronger and more positive, it changes how you carry yourself in the world. You become more assured, more decisive, and more comfortable in your own skin. And that comfort is something others can feel. It draws people in, not because you are trying to impress them, but because you are simply being yourself without hesitation. There is also a deeper understanding that develops regarding patience. You begin to realize that not everything needs to happen immediately, and not every desire needs to be fulfilled right away. In the past, impatience may have led you to chase outcomes, to rush processes, or to force situations that were not ready. But now you learn to wait. Not passively, but actively. You continue working on yourself while allowing life to unfold at its own pace. This kind of patience is powerful because it removes desperation from your actions. You are no longer trying to control timing, you are focusing on preparation. And when you are prepared, you are ready for whatever opportunity comes your way. This mindset reduces stress and increases confidence because you trust that what is meant for you will arrive when the time is right. And until then, you remain focused, disciplined, and committed to your path. Another important shift is how you handle setbacks. Instead of seeing them as failures, you begin to view them as feedback. Every setback becomes an opportunity to learn, to adjust, and to improve. This perspective keeps you moving forward even when things do not go as planned. You no longer allow disappointment to stop you. Instead, you use it as fuel for growth. This resilience is what separates those who succeed from those who give up. Because challenges are inevitable, but your response to them is what defines your outcome. When you respond with strength, with clarity, and with determination, you turn obstacles into stepping stones. And over time, those small steps add up to significant progress. You begin to see how every experience, good or bad, contributes to your development. And that realization gives you a sense of control over your journey, even when circumstances are unpredictable. As your mindset continues to strengthen, you also become more comfortable with solitude. You no longer see being alone as something negative. Instead, you see it as an opportunity to connect with yourself on a deeper level. You use that time to reflect, to plan, and to recharge. Solitude becomes a space where you can think clearly without external noise or influence. And in that space, you gain insights about your life, your goals, and your direction. This clarity allows you to make better decisions and avoid unnecessary distractions. You become more intentional with how you spend your time and who you allow into your life. And because you are no longer afraid of being alone, you are less likely to settle for relationships or situations that do not serve you. You choose quality over convenience, and that choice leads to a more fulfilling and meaningful life. There is also a noticeable change in how you approach success. You stop measuring it based on external achievements or comparisons with others. Instead, you define success based on your own growth, your consistency, and your alignment with your values. This internal definition of success removes a lot of pressure and allows you to enjoy the process more. You are no longer chasing someone else's version of success. You are creating your own. And that makes your journey more authentic and more satisfying. You celebrate your progress, no matter how small, and you stay committed to your vision even when it takes time to manifest. This long-term perspective keeps you grounded and focused, preventing you from being distracted by temporary setbacks or external opinions. You understand that real success is built over time, through consistent effort and dedication. If you've followed this message to this point, then you are already developing a mindset that sets you apart. You are learning to value yourself, to trust your journey, and to move with intention. And these qualities will continue to shape your life in powerful ways. So keep going. Stay focused on your growth. Stay disciplined in your actions. And most importantly, stay aligned with who you are becoming. Because the moment you stopped chasing was not just a decision, it was a transformation. And that transformation will continue to unfold as long as you remain committed to it. Your future is being built by the choices you make today, and every step you take towards self-respect and growth brings you closer to the life you truly deserve. If this message resonates with you, subscribe to my channel for more content that will continue to guide you toward becoming the strongest and most focused version of yourself.